Hi, I'm Jana Short. I'm the Director of Communications for the school district. And first I want to thank you for coming out tonight. We knew that we might have a small turnout tonight. Apparently there are events in Ferguson for the city council race tonight, a couple of them. But we are taping tonight's information session so that this will be visible to everybody. And we just wanted to have a chance to answer any questions that you have, to give you some information about Proposition I, and really just to open up that dialogue. So in the back this is a mailer. This will be going to households in the district and to frequent voters in the 2 weeks before the election. So you'll start to see these in homes. And if you would like to visit the district website, there's a section on the website that has all of this information, everything that we're presenting tonight, including the PowerPoints. We will add the video that we're going to show you. So we've aimed to kind of have a one-stop shop, kind of clearinghouse for information. And then, as always, we really encourage you to reach out to the school district if you have any questions, or if you're talking to someone and they have questions. We want to know about those. Our CFO, or Director of Facilities, Career and Technical Education, myself, we all are available to you to answer any questions that you have. So, I think this is a short video that Kevin Hampton, our video production specialist there in the back, produced. And it's very brief, and we plan on sharing it a lot leading up to the election just to increase awareness about what Proposition I is and what it means for our students. So I just wanted to share that with you, and I'll do that in a minute. And then we'll hear from Laura Madrusik, our Chief Financial Officer, and she's going to talk about the impact that Proposition I could have on our budget. And then Terry O'Neill will talk about the potential impact on our facilities. And then Jay Bolich, who is our Career and Technical Education Coordinator, will talk a little bit about really where education needs to go in the coming years in order to prepare our students effectively for the jobs of now and of the future. So let's go ahead and show our short video.
The Ferguson School District is comprised of 17 elementary schools, 3 middle schools, 3 high schools, and an alternative school. The Challenger Learning Center and the Little Creek Nature Area lie within our boundaries. Our buildings are well constructed, but require ongoing maintenance, repair, and renovation just like our homes. The district has a responsibility to ensure these facilities are properly maintained for future generations of students. In addition, Ferguson Florissant is challenged to keep pace with the technological, curricular, and facility safety advances parents and students expect. Proposition I is a no-tax increase bond issue on the April 7th ballot in the Ferguson Florissant School District. If approved, Proposition I would fund upgrades to the district's infrastructure, including security improvements, building repairs, and renovations. Bond issue would also upgrade classroom technology to help the district deliver innovative instruction and learning opportunities that prepare students for 21st century careers, including conversion of a district school into a science, technology, engineering, arts, and math learning center. To learn more about Proposition I on the April 7th ballot, visit the district website at www.fergflor.org. Proposition I, investing in innovation and infrastructure. Paid for by the Ferguson Florissant School District, Lawrence W. LaRue, Acting Superintendent, 1005 Waterford Drive, Florissant, Missouri.
We need that really fast legal voice that goes before. So let's go ahead and hear from Laura Madrusik, and thanks to Kevin for that. That is, I think, going to be helpful. It's just a quick shareable little video that if people kind of wonder what it is, I think that'll be very useful. So Laura Madrusik, our district's Chief Financial Officer.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. I really do appreciate that you're here. What I'm here to do tonight is to give you background information about why this proposition is on the ballot at this time. It's important for you to understand where the district is financially and what our plans are moving forward, and this is a big piece of that, so I thank you for coming and sharing this evening with us. So I'm going to give you I'm sorry, because I know some of you came last year to some of my tax issue presentations, And so some of this is kind of the same thing, but it's important to go over again just so you understand some school district funding basics. So basically, school districts operate out of different funds. Operating funds are made up of two separate funds, the teacher's fund, or the special fund we call it, and the general fund. The special fund pays for teacher salaries and benefits only, and we can only use that fund to pay for those types of things. And then the general fund pays for everything else. So all of our supplies, our purchase services, our non-certified salaries, so our teacher aides, our nurses, people like that are paid out of our operating funds. Then we also have capital and bond funds. The capital fund is used to do things to help with our equipment purchases, so equipment that's in the classroom is paid out of the capital fund, or also the upgrades to our different facilities. And we can only use this capital or bond funds for those types of needs. We can't use those funds to pay for salaries or for supplies or things of that nature. It has to be criteria, it has to be $1,000 or more, or easily pilferable, so a lot of our computers come out of that fund. And then bond funds are used either in conjunction with our capital funds or in lieu of our capital funds. So we're going to be talking about this set of funds tonight. And then our debt service fund is used only to pay for the principal and interest of the bonds that we do sell. So the revenue sources for our operating funds, we have two major sources. The largest amount of money that we receive, 55% of our funds come from property taxes. And then the rest of it, or 36% mostly, comes from the state. So the foundation formula and the casino revenue gives us the rest of the funds. And then we have a small amount that comes in from the county, 1%, and then 8% of our funds are federally funded funds that help pay for our free and reduced lunches and breakfasts, and then also Title I funds that helps with supplemental rating. So the largest amount of money that we receive is from our property taxes. And that's important to know because that money has to last us for a whole year. We receive that money in January, and then we rely on that money for the whole year. A lot of times when we get to June, it's very important for us, it's always important for us to have proper fund balances so that we can make sure that we maintain our balances through the rest of the year. If we have low fund balances like we're currently at right now, then we have to borrow in December to meet our financial needs. And so in December of 2013, we had to borrow $3.7 million to get us through the month of December. And then in November of 2014, we had to borrow $5 million to get us through the month of December. So it's very important for us to continue to build our bond funds so that we get to the point where we don't have to borrow anymore. Because when we borrow, we're borrowing from ourselves, basically. We're borrowing from that future tax revenue, and then that reduces that future tax revenue then that we get in January. So our fund balances are extremely important through this whole thing. Now, thankfully, with the help of the community, we were able to take charge and do some things and pass a tax levy. So we passed a tax levy for our operating funds. 50 cents was passed, and because of the assessments that had dropped so in the last 5 years, we had lost about $10 million worth of revenue. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts because it really did help us. I was projecting a $3.7 million deficit for the 14-15 school year, and we had cut and cut and cut to where we couldn't cut anymore. We were going to really start impacting the classrooms. That helped us to not have to make those additional cuts with transportation and other things that were going to hurt our kids in the classrooms. And now we're at a balanced budget. I went to the board in December with a budget amendment, and because of that tax revenue that we're going to get, I was able to go to the board with a balanced budget for this 14-15 school year. So we went with it. We're no longer anticipating a 10.45% fund balance. We believe that we're going to come in at about 15.23%. And so I just kind of wanted to give you a synopsis of in 11-12 or 10-11, you can see that we had actually 20% is a pretty healthy, or it's a healthy fund balance for a district of our size. Some have larger, but a district our size, 20% is healthy. But then it started to decline. We had the assessments drop, and the revenue started to drop, and our expenditures also dropped. But as you can see, our fund balances dropped to 13.49%, which is when we really got scared and started taking action. We made a lot of budget cuts. We looked at a lot of our efficiencies. How can we do things more efficiently? Facilities has taken on they used to do a lot of contracted services, which are very expensive, and they moved a lot of our work in-house so that it's not as expensive as it was before. So we've seen a lot of savings in the facilities area as well. We made a lot of cuts in the 13-14 school year. I actually stopped spending at one point because I said, please don't spend any more money. We need to get through the end of the school year. So by doing that, we were actually able to come in at 14.71%. And with the tax levy of 50 cents, I believe that we're going to end the year with 15.23%, and then again next year at 15.88%.
Question,
Yes?
how do you quit spending?
Well, you just tell the teachers, only buy what you need. So there were no, we looked at our programs and said, we can't spend any more money. What is it that you have to get through? And so they really did a good job. I did a tour of the schools and I said, let's recycle, let's ask our parents to bring in materials, let's do things like that so that we don't have to spend
So
as
you're
much money.
outsourcing, so other people are paying what
Right, so
the district normally would have.
right.
So you're writing on other people's voluntary money. is
Right.
what it is.
Right,
Right?
we were, right. A truckload of paper, when we buy paper, a truckload of paper is the cost of a teacher's salary. It's about $40,000 for us. And so we ask the teachers to conserve on their paper. Please don't print everything that you need to print. Use the backs of things. So we really went through, we talked about energy conservation. Please, well, we actually went through and put or electronic eyes on our light switches so that the lights would automatically turn out. And we saw about a $200,000 savings of electricity because we did that. We went through and asked the teachers, please turn off your smart board light bulbs because the smart board light bulb costs about $200 to replace. So a lot of times the teachers just leave them on because you don't think about it, but when I started bringing awareness and they really started thinking about it, then they decided that, oh my gosh, you're right, we could save a teacher's salary if we just did these things. So because of the awareness and some of the energy efficient things that we did, we were able to save some money last year.
Another question.
Yes, sir.
Have you made contact with any of the big corporations around here who have a site services group that do this sort of stuff?
We contracted with Amoresco. They're, you mean like as far as energy efficiency type things?
No, I'm talking about freebies.
Oh, yes. The teachers are good at that, and
No,
so.
I'm talking
Right.
about energy conservation, everything conservation that the big corporations do. I was a sleazy lawyer at Ralston Creek for 32 years. We had a site services group, and they were on our case about everything, and they had things, kind of fine-tuned. I'm just wondering if the district, whoever, has reached out to some of the major corporations who, this is their lifeblood. This goes to the bottom line,
Right.
sort of thing.
Well, we did have Amoresco went through and looked at all of our schools.
They're an energy service company, they're called, and they work for us at no cost.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
they get their funding through savings for us. And also, we work with Ameren and received over $300,000 in rebates for lighting and other programs. And so things like that is what she's talking about, that not just the motion detectors, and we changed all out to be more efficient tubing rather than the old ones. So those things alone, and then rebates and from Ameren were a big help.
Great.
So, and those were just some of the things. We also are looking at transportation efficiencies. So in the future, you'll see some different things we're trying to do with our transportation because gasoline is also very expensive. So we're going to be looking at ways that we can make our transportation more efficient.
Such as?
Well, one of the things we already did do was it cost $400,000 to pick up preschool students and take them to the various schools. I had to cut that out. We don't receive funding for preschoolers. We do receive funding for the other students, but for preschool, we couldn't do it. Now, it's really hurt our early education program, but it costs $400,000 a year, and that was something that we could use that money for other things. And so that was one of them. Another thing is we, in the future, maybe looking at redistricting, making more neighborhood schools again, where we're not busing kids all over Creation, where these kids would go back to their neighborhood schools. Leave to the leaders, yes. And heaters, yes, actually, thank you. We just bought heaters for our buses in the mornings when it's really cold. The bus drivers would have to go in early and start the buses and keep them running and running and running to make sure that they would run. So we did buy heaters that they're automatic, and you put them on the bus engine, and then it warms up the bus.
They don't use the gas, the bus drivers aren't getting overtime for coming in early.
Right. So we're trying to look at programs like that, and we're still continuing to look for those types of programs that help us save, so that we can continue to build our fund balances, because we've got to get our fund balances back up to the 20% level. So what happened when our balances started declining? We looked at our operating revenue and we said we've got $4 million a year coming out to pay for our capital expenditures. How can we not do that? A lot of times school districts will use bond funds to help you do that, and it takes the burden off that operating levy, and then you can use your bond funds to cover some of those expenditures. And so in 2010-11, the district passed a bond levy of $25 million. And that we've been using that over the last 5 years to cover our facilities needs. This is the last year for those bond funds. After this year, we don't have bond funds anymore. And our fund balances aren't where they need to be. So we're going to need to borrow some more money to help us get through that until we can get our fund balances back up to where we need to be. And I believe that we are on the right track of doing that, and that eventually we're going to be able to do that again, but we're not at that point right now. If we have to borrow from the operating funds to cover those expenses, we'll be back to a $4.4 million deficit again. And I really don't want to do that because then it drives our balances back down. So, like, to put money into the capital funds, you can either take revenue, there are certain revenue sources from the state that you can put into your capital funds, or you can do a transfer. And we're allowed to transfer up to $4.7 million to cover our capital expenditures, move it over from the operating funds to the capital funds. So that's one way to do it. But the other way to do it is to sell bonds, and a lot of school districts do use bond money to pay for the major maintenance and things that they need to do. Our debt service levy right now is 30 cents. That's what we are using now to pay for our bonds that we currently have. And we have been making payments, extra payments towards the principal and payments and interest on those bonds. So I have been actually taking extra money from that 30 cents and using it to pay down those bonds that we currently have. And we did put a $31 million bond sale on the April 7th election to help us with these needs that we have, to try to preserve our fund balances. So we're going to do two sales. We're going to sell $16 million in 2015. And with that, we're going to do, and with the sale of bonds, we've taken on two large projects. Amoresco did go through our schools. They looked at our schools' needs. They identified $90 million worth of projects that need to be done. We can't take on the $90 million, but we can take a piecemeal, and we can do this a little bit at a time, which is, we're just going to bite off a little bit as we go. And one of the things that the Amoresco looked at was the safety and security for our schools, because there have been a lot of crazy things happening out in the world lately with schools and students. And so we want to make sure that our schools are safe. So $16 million of that first sale of bonds is going to go towards our safety and security. And then the rest of that for the next 2 years will fund our facility and technology improvements. And then we're going to sell another $15 million in the year 2017. And we're going to continue to use that to upgrade, to look at our facilities and technology needs. And then we're going to look and do a survey. If the bond issue passes, we'll start having meetings with parents and teachers and all the stakeholders in the community to talk about converting one of our schools into a STEAM learning center. And STEAM is science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. And so we're very excited about that because I think it's going to provide our students with a great opportunity that they aren't currently, they're getting it in each individual school, but hopefully that we can tie it into and have a really great STEAM program. So the capital needs that we need to look at right now, we have been purchasing buses as we go along. We've got a really great bus fleet. We always get 90%, 98% whenever we have inspections from the state. They come and they inspect our buses twice a year. We always do very well with that because we're able to maintain our buses. And so we typically buy 3 to 4 buses a year with that bond money. We also upgrade our technology. Coming down the road, we're going to have student assessments that all have to be done online, and we need to be prepared for that. We've been continually upgrading our infrastructure so that we can make sure that we have enough bandwidth for our students, but we also need to make sure that we've got enough equipment for those students, and we can continue to maintain and add to what the needs are for technology for our students. And then we also have all these other things that we use that we're going to use $18 million of it for the next 4 years to cover the needs that we have in the district.
Question?
Yes, sir.
If I'm following this, the district has its own bus,
We own our own buses.
and the bus drivers are all district employees?
They're first and floors and school district employees.
Okay, now, question, I'm sure you have a ready answer, is why do you own them as opposed to working with Durham School Services or whoever, is it less expensive for you guys to do it?
Yes,
Okay.
and we have control over it. So
Okay.
when you have to use an outside source, we know our buses are safe. Durham and First Student don't have the same safety that we do on our buses, and we hire our own bus drivers. They love these kids are theirs. They love them. You know, I've had several comments from parents saying, thank you to, you know, because I oversee transportation. So they'll call me and say, I know you only hear bad stuff, but I want you to hear the good stuff. Your bus driver, you know, is really making a difference in my child's life, because that bus driver is the first person that child sees when they gets on the bus. And these people live in the district and have children that attend the schools, and they want to make sure that these kids are taken care of.
And so from a financial standpoint,
But from a financial standpoint.
we're not going in whole because we have our own buses.
Right, and we do get funding from the state too. It doesn't completely cover it, but we do get some funding for it.
Okay.
So like I said, we're going to do our $18 million over the next 4 years to continue to fund the projects that we need to fund. And then the additional projects are the safety and security enhancements. That'll be $7 million. And then $6 million will go to the conversion of the STEAM school. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. O'Neill. He's going to talk about, he's our director of facilities, and he's going to talk about some of the projects that he uses the money for. Yes.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming. I just want to talk a little bit about 3 different areas I'm going to cover. The 2 that are shown up here are safety and security for our students and staff, and converting one of our schools. And I'm not going to be looking at it from the educational side. I'm looking at it more from the infrastructure side because of my position with the district. I'm going to cover that, and then I'll cover a little bit of what Ms. Madrid talked about as far as our infrastructure and our facilities and the funding we need for that. Our district security, right now, we want to enhance that at most of our school locations. They all currently have security. We do have cameras and monitors, external intercom systems so they can talk to people coming in. We have an electric door release latch to get the people in without them coming in without our knowledge. However, some of the locations are that once you get in, the office isn't where it belongs. You walk in, you have some time to get down the hallway, turn down a different hallway. We need to correct that. There's no vestibules in these areas. Even if there is an office right there, you're still in and you have to turn to get in the office. We want to look at vestibules to contain the people, and then also have some type of system to verify their identity and status to make sure they belong there and we can trust them in our building with our students and our teachers and staff. So the recommendations that we have, and again, working with Amoresco, they looked at all kinds of different things and did a lot of facility development with us and worked with my staff. We want to move some of these offices where it's needed. You see up there, I won't go through all of it, but it tells you what some of that involves with demolition of walls, casework and things like that, carpentry work and so forth. Creating a vestibule, having ADA assisted doors when you put in these new doorways, so you have ramps and walkways that are ADA accessible so everybody can come to our schools. An airphone entry system, a little different than what we have. It does have video, audio, and lock release, but also has keyless entry, and also has some other features that are great for us. Also, you know, some of the basic things, flooring, painting, HVAC upgrades, lighting upgrades, and so on. I'm not going to get into asbestos abatement and all these different things. Hall pass system, I'm going to talk about in a second, and some other work. And as Mrs. Madruzik mentioned, that it costs us $7 million, and it covers almost every one of our elementary schools and middle schools.
When you say abatement, what are you abating?
You usually find some type of mold abatement or asbestos abatement. Anytime we remove tile, we have to do asbestos abatement. A lot of times it's not even there, but you have to be safe because of the age of most of our tile. So that's there's different types of abatement, mold and asbestos. And my staff is actually trained and certified in abatement.
Would this be for all the schools, or do you just take elementary and middle? That's it?
Mainly elementary, middle, won't be every single middle, and won't be elementary, depending on the setup where the offices are. Some will get vestibules, some will have their office moved, some are in good locations already and won't get anything, but almost everyone.
So why not high school?
Most of the high schools already have the security. High schools have security guards. Elementary schools and middle schools don't. They usually have security booths. If you think about MSB in particular, you can't get in without going by the security guards. And same thing with McClure. McClure has a guard check before you can even get in, and then when you get in the door, they're there again. So we feel that the high schools are secure at this point, but we're more worried about our middle schools and elementary schools. One of the things I just was mentioning is what they call Hall Pass, which is a really neat system. You bring in your ID, you swipe it. It tells us things out of the National Sex Offenders Database, if there's restraining orders, custody issues, or any customized alerts that we put in ourselves so school knows something about a particular parent, maybe there's a separation and the mother or father is not supposed to pick up the child, this system, swipe, I'm sorry, you can't enter the building. If you can enter the building, it makes an ID for you, so we know who you are and why you're there, and we'll pick that up before you leave. Talked a little bit about the airphone entry system. That'd be very useful. Fobs or IDs for staff. And then again, like I said, a buzzing entry to get in. It's an interesting program. Both of them work really, really well. We've used them in some places already. This building has a similar system in it already. Of course, like I mentioned before, we want to be ADA compliant with our walkways, sidewalks, doors, ramps, and so forth. We'll do all that. Another big important item is our surveillance system. We have cameras now, but we're going to get more with more coverage. They're going to be higher resolution, more pixels, more gigabyte connection. We'll have infrared on our building, so at night we can see better. And they'll be saved on a system, which is kind of the technology thing, but it's a hard drive-based recording system. And that's how we want to keep our schools secure and use that funding. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was the STEAM concept conversion, which again, I said I'm not the education guy, but I'm going to talk about the actual physical conversion of the building. We are looking into several different locations and finding one that we think would best fit, and taking a wing of that and designating it for this type of thing, so our students can have this opportunity, this amazing opportunity, and give them such future opportunities in college and so forth. So, but we want to make sure it's good and safe and they have the things they need in it. So we'll be doing all the things you see here with everything from parking lots to ADA, windows, flooring, ceilings, high efficiency lighting, HVAC. We're also going to be putting in suppression systems, new restrooms. Everything will be updated, including our technology, all the wiring and things they need will all be new. Each lab or classroom will have shelving and cabinetry, the equipment they need, the auxiliary storage, and all the things required to have a good, real lab for them to learn in, and they'll be all connected in this facility. So that's the physical part of that converting. And then our infrastructure, a lot of you might use duct tape, sometimes we have to. But just to give you an overview of what we're responsible for, we have 30 campuses or locations in the Ferguson, Florissant School District. 24 schools, 17 elementary, 3 middle, 3 high school, and an alternate school. We also have some really great specialty schools, the Challenger Learning Center and our Little Creek Nature Area, which is 94 acres by itself. And then we have our non-school buildings, as you can see up there, one of them being where my staff is. We have 436.16 acres that we maintain and over 2 million square foot of buildings. So it keeps us busy, and that's why the funding's always hard. These are some of the things we have to cover. I always like to point out this, you can't probably tell, but this is bigger than a truck, and that's one boiler. High schools might have 6 or 8 of those boilers. This year we had to actually remove a wall to replace a boiler because of the size of them. You're talking something like that could run anywhere from $250,000 to $500,000 for one. Wow. So that's why funding is hard. And you can see some of our other rooftop units, some other air conditioning units, venting units, things like that. We have a Daikin system, which is a specialty system in some of our buildings. We also have obviously plumbing issues, and some of those are where we're actually have guys. Luckily now we used to pay, but as Mr. Drew mentioned, now we have our own staff that can do excavation, can do these repairs, and save us a lot of money. Something like that hole would cost us, throwing money into a hole, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. We do it now for about $1,000 with our staff. We have all types of different flooring throughout the city: wood floors, gym floors, tile floors. We have to look at ceilings, and one school we did last year, most of all the school, and it costs about $25,000 for one school just to fix the ceilings. And we have 30 locations. Old alarm systems, old PA systems, we're constantly upgrading those. You can see what a PA system used to look like. Well, that's still in one of our schools. That's about $30,000 to replace. Kitchen equipment, fire suppression, obviously very important to our kitchen staff, for our kids. The fire suppression system, $30,000 to $50,000 per hood and unit. Some of those high schools, again, 4 or 5. You're talking $100,000, $200,000 to take care of a high school. We have different types of athletic and PE equipment and fields. You can see batting cages. That's a tennis court. That was about a $10,000 repair that had to be done to that one in particular. We have dugouts and lockers. Lockers we spent over $75,000 last year on. Doors, tuck pointing windows, as you know, we spent doors and windows in your own home. In this type of case, it's even worse. We spent over $50,000 replacing doors, and that's, of course, not even a dent. We have roofs anywhere from a simple roof like that on a small building that we have for $30,000, or we replaced a roof last year at one of our middle schools, was $450,000. Also parking lots, concrete, asphalt steps, walkways, we spend about $300,000 a year on that. Restroom, there's always things to be updated, toilets to be replaced, things to be replaced, tile, so forth. We'll spend a good $100,000 a year, again, and not really getting where we'd like to get it. Playground equipment on a small playground, $20,000, $30,000. On a nice size one, $150,000. We can install that. That's one of the things I always want our staff to do, it save money. By state law, when it's at a school, it has to be installed by a professional license with the state. Ms. Pedruzzi mentioned this a little bit about the buses, but we also have trucks and grounds and custodial equipment. As you can see, different things, mowers and cleaning systems, trucks, dump. We need to function. We bought some things like that to actually save money. We had our own snow plows this year, and our snow plowing and supply and get our own salt supply, which is going to save us over $50,000 the first year. Audiovisual, that's kind of a little joke. That's some ancient equipment we don't actually have, but we do have things like this that we're trying to update. And it's just like technology, AV is something that we have to constantly try and keep upgrading and keep on. And we're only spending about $60,000 a year on that. Then the other final big thing in our budget, Mr. Durant mentioned it, but I have to mention it, is technology. It's been a large part of all of our bond budgets and our capital budgets, and it's really important. And that's the final part of the bond that I'm going to speak about. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question on the STEAM, converting part of a wing of a building. Instead of using it for that, I'd like to see it used for classrooms and reduce the classroom size. We have a real reading problem with a lot of our students in the elementary schools, and a lot of the classrooms are 25 to 30 kids. And I would rather see the money spent on creating more classrooms and smaller classrooms than, I don't disagree with that, it would be a fantastic program, but if the kids can't read, the rest is for naught. So that's a problem I have with that.
It's not my venue, if somebody else wants to answer that, I'm building it, not...
Well, to expand our classrooms, we would need to buy another building, which we couldn't buy a building for the $6 million. But we can address that out of our operating funds to hiring more teachers to be in the classrooms that we currently have. Eventually down the road, and this is a dream of mine, but eventually with our next bond issue, I would like to address our preschool needs and maybe get like a preschool building so that we can move, because a lot of our buildings have preschools or not daycares, but preschool classrooms inside of them, and that takes up space within our classrooms. So eventually down the road, I'd like to move those out into their own building and have one early ed center, so that would free up the space for the students.
Well, I thought originally the Mark Twain building was that, and then I understand that some of those preschool classrooms got moved into elementary schools. So what are we doing with the Mark Twain building?
So Mark Twain is our alternative ed center.
And it's filling up all those classrooms.
Mm-hmm. Yes, unfortunately.
So maybe we need to address another issue.
Right, and we are working very hard on that one too. But we are hoping to someday have an early ed center, because we do have we have early ed special ed students within those classroom schools also. We have a lot of needs in this district, and we're taking a little bit at a time. You know, there's also things that we'd like to do and with the redistricting, we can also open up some classrooms too. And maybe with redistricting, we can, make a 6th grade center or move 6th grade to the middle schools or do something like that. So again, we can free up the space in the elementary schools. We have a new superintendent coming, and there's all these ideas, and we're hoping that we can help him with that and with the community's help too. What are some things that we can do to free up the space in those elementary schools to help us with our reading needs, because we do have a reading issue, and we are trying to address that with our curriculum and with our teaching needs, but the space is an issue in our schools.
Hi, when you say with the community's input, I've oftentimes with the administration run into real barriers getting input. it seems to either be fall on deaf ears or I feel patronized quite frequently. But yeah, we know who you are, we've got this under control. And then when I go and I talk to people in the facilities, I find that that's not the case. When you talk about all these kids in the alternative schools, it seems, it seems nice to say that, but my experience has been just the opposite with the administration.
Over the last couple of years, as we've gone through the strategic planning process and kind of bringing in the community to kind of make decisions about where we're headed, that has been something we've really been trying to seek, is the input of our community. Just this year, we've sought the input of our churches in our district and developed a faith community partnership. And so we're trying to open up those avenues. I mean, we recognize that that's really key. And with Proposition I and talking about that STEAM school conversion, that would be a huge opportunity for our community to understand what it is that we think would be helpful to students and then to weigh in on that. So we're working very hard to
Can I add something just on a personal note? I'm a resident of the district my whole life. I attended the schools here, and I've just been here 2.5 years. And I've seen in the time I've been here a change in the district's openness to people and to ideas, especially with our board. Our board is really outgoing and wanting to meet with people. Our meetings have gotten bigger. And I think you see people in places in the district that are more open and looking for input and conversation. And I think it really has changed in the time that
Perhaps
I've
it's
seen.
the individuals who I'm speaking then.
I mean, we are really trying to get the input from the community.
And that's purely personal.
He's
Speaking for
saying
myself.
it's more open. Why were they closed?
I don't know. I don't know that they were closed. I just feel like
Well,
it's
it's
just
more open.
Well, it's more. People are different people. Some people can talk and be with people, and I think that we have that atmosphere. I think more people are that way. I don't know that it was closed before. I just think the things she mentioned, we're having more opportunities for input. I think.
And I really think just everywhere, and not just the school district, not just our school district, not just, but organizations in general. I mean, things are the world that we all live in is really changing, and there was kind of an old way of doing business, of which I think Ferguson Florissant was a part, acting without always getting community input. But that is not the way to move
How
forward.
about no community input?
Right, that frequently happens.
We got moved here fresh out of law school in '68, and the teachers were the experts. Parents didn't know diddly squat. So you guys go home, in our case, raise 13 kids, you send them to us, we'll take care of the whole thing. Well, that doesn't sound very open to me.
I think.
And some of that is still hanging around.
It is. It's an evolutionary process, but we're headed in that direction.
Dinosaurs?
Huh. We do have some dinosaurs. We probably do, as every organization does. I think that's as a society, as a community, we see that all around us. That recognized need for additional community input. So it's not just in Ferguson, Florissant, but
Is
it's
it your
really all around
sense
us.
that, one, the board, and two, the school administration, principals, etc., are really open and willing to listen to other people now?
I can tell you that the board is listening because they come to us, administrators, quite frequently and say, these are issues we need to address. So I know that we just got through negotiations and they said, these are things that we have to take care of, make sure that this gets done. So the board is listening. The board didn't always listen, but the board is listening. And I think that we've got new people in place. Now I've been in the district for 26 years, but I'm new as an administrator. I was the behind the scenes money girl before, and now I'm actually a stakeholder. I'm a administrator. And I think that we all are trying to listen whenever parents call to complain about transportation. I always listen. I always take their input and say, how can we make this better? And we're really trying to get that word out. We started last year with that whole strategic process, and we had a really good turnout, and people came and gave their input, and we're trying to take that information and move forward. And I think with our new superintendent, he is a communicator, and I think that we're going to continue to move forward with that, with our new leadership.
Last question in this session. Do we really have security problems in the schools? Are people breaking in all the time and ripping things up?
No,
another-
but do we wait for that to happen? Do we wait for?
No, I understand that. I'm just asking, are you having problems in this school with vandalism and all that sort of stuff?
There's been some
There's some,
vandalism that,
I mean,
but it's not a problem. But it's something that we do, with the outside cameras, we would like better cameras. We did have.
I mean, we've had vandalism, we've had burglaries.
Right.
I mean, you've seen in the news, we've had burglaries, we've had vandalisms. I mean, it's not every day, it's not every week, same every month, but when we have them, it's nice that we have the surveillance to see it. It's also nice because one day someone may walk in our school and not want to go to the office. It hasn't happened. We're thankful for that. But do we wait?
Hi, I have two questions. One, we always talk about I'm with parents as teachers, we always talk about the importance of early ed, but it's like early ed always gets cut. Will the buses ever return again?
Until we get better,
No.
no. And so early ed has always been preserved. It's just been the last few years that they've had to take major cuts. We've always tried to cut every other place, but to preserve the classroom, we had to move to early ed. So Parents as First Teachers lost a lot of funding over the last several years, and so their program really took a lot of hits the last 2 to 3 years, I know for sure, because I've been working with it since then. We try the best that we can, but we've got to make sure right now that we maintain accreditation, and our resources had to go to the classroom. But as we can build our balances, then those funds will expand back out to the other programming too. We had to cut a lot of after-school programming. Athletics took a beating, fine arts took a beating, and early ed took a beating. That's not something that, one thing that happened when we were making all those budget cuts last year, and it broke my heart, and I don't want to have to go back to that mode. I would sit in board meetings, and these students would come up and they'd get all these accolades. We're doing all these great things, and we never hear about the good students. In the paper, it's always the bad things that are happening. But when I sit in a board meeting, I get to see the good students. And that last year, when we had to make all those budget cuts and cut all that programming, those kids were going up and getting those awards, and it would almost make me cry. It's making me almost cry now. I would see those kids coming up and think, we just cut that program, and it was breaking my heart. And so I can't tell you how thankful I am that you guys helped with the tax levy, because we were able to put more programming back in, and we will continue as we build our balances back up to put more back in.
Then my second question, okay, I work out of the early ed building, and I was just wondering why you put down all that expensive, had us move everything, put down all that tile, and then it rains through the windows every time it rains.
And that's just, this building is terrible, and that's why I would like to move those kids out of this building. And
But why did they even do it? If you don't fix the windows, why
Well,
would you put
because
all
it's
that?
raining on the carpet, and the carpet gets moldy, and so we had to put tile. At least we can mop up the tile, but we couldn't.
Water gets under tile too?
Yeah. But it
Okay, I was just wondering.
yeah.
I would like to say I've had 2 kiddos in the district, and I've always been very pleased with their early education. I think there are a lot of districts that don't even provide that,
Right.
for free to the district, and so I'm very grateful for that. And I always thought it was a really great program.
It is a great program, and we've got some great teachers, and it really is. And you had a question there, Claire?
I can't remember what it was.
Something I would like to see is more participation from parents. And I know it's very hard, but in every town meeting that there is in Parker Road, there's hardly never any parents in anything.
Right. And
So
that's-
and it's sad because like when they're doing the testing, they want to meet with the parents so they can tell them what to expect, but there's never anybody anywhere.
And it's really struggle with. It is, and all schools in general really struggle with parent participation, particularly a lot of our neighboring districts. And it's really, it's a paradigm shift, or we're going to have to change the way we're doing things. So a lot of times events at school that parents have to come to, like maybe that doesn't work. Maybe we have to look at that delivery model differently and think about other tools that we can use to get parent participation, just new ways. And there's conversations about that going on all across the country about really doing parent participation in radically different ways. Making it so that you're going to the parents. You're not always making them come to school, so there's lots of different things, but it's definitely a struggle to get And, you know, for a lot of parents, they want to. It's not that they're not interested.
Right.
It's that schedules and jobs and everything else gets in
But
the
we all
way.
have to work, we all have schedules, we all have to eat.
Right.
But it's important, for example, the problems with reading.
Right.
If they're not assisted at home,
Right.
then they rely only at the school.
Right.
So
Yeah,
it's like, there has to be something's got to give with
Yeah,
that.
I've been tutoring now for 3 years. First year, single mom, 5 kids, hadn't seen dad over to Kansas City. Second year, single mom, 8 children, absentee father, absentee stepfather. And so mom's paddling the canoe, bailing water, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This year, finally, there's a father in the home, but guess what he's doing? He's working 2 jobs, and mom's working also. And so everybody's going to come home and get all excited about this. I think the real world for this school district, and probably most school districts across the country, is don't expect parental assistance at home. And at least as I see it, we're paying you guys for the school district to educate the kids starting in first grade with huge emphasis on reading, and don't expect the home to do some of the teaching. That's the real world, at least as I see it right now.
And that's why we're trying to do that with our programs. And then we've also reached out to you guys to say, can we put to the ministers and the
Ministerial.
churches. Thank you. It's a hard word for me to say. So that, like, whenever you have Wednesday evening service, you know, maybe we could have some tutors in those to help those kids while their parents are going to service. The kids could be learning, you know, to read and things like that. So.
I'm an advanced practice nurse in child adolescent psychiatry, and in North County, and I work with these kids, and a lot of these kids are coming from places where they are lucky if they, they're lucky if they have a parent. My husband was sharing an example of being at McDonald's the other day, waiting for our daughter, and having a father sit there doing the homework with his daughter, and listening to him read. He could barely read himself. And so to have, we put expectations on parents sometimes based on what our education is, what our experience is. And so if we don't understand where they are, I can come to a meeting tonight. I know a lot of the parents that I work with that can't. I see kids in their homes because after school, because otherwise they don't get the services. So those are the things that, we don't think about with parents. And yes, we all work, and I work too. But when you're working 2 part-time jobs where if you don't show up when you're scheduled to be there, guess what? There are laws that say they can't fire you, but guess what? They will. And so those are very different real scenarios for parents. And so we can't project that onto our parents. And the other thing is we've had a communication issue too, I think, in the district for a long time. I like the phone, but the phone doesn't reach everybody because some people have, temporary phones, and their phones get cut off sometimes, and so some people have cars that they've got loans from people that they actually put stoppers on their cars that they can't drive them. I've had people who've done that because they didn't make their car payment. And so and that's our district, and that's just kind of the way it is. We've got, I think, the largest homeless population in our district right now that we've had in years. And so
1,801.
it's a very different struggle, a very different one.
And we're very transient too. We've got families in and out. So that's the other piece to the parent involvement. Parents that have not been in our district from early childhood on, a lot of times they've just moved here and they might not be able to, they're just here for a short time. They don't care. They're just here to get that job, do that job, and then they're going to move on to the next
Or
one.
they just want an hour of sleep or an hour of quiet where they,
Steve Weeks, your homeless liaison,
Yes.
gave us a report yesterday in our Ferguson Ministerial Alliance. Over 1,800 kids homeless. And on average, these students will move 3 to 5 times during a school year.
Parent participation has always been a problem. When my kids, they went to Parker Road years ago, and PTO meetings were 5 people. So it's been a forever problem. It's not anything new with all the situation. A lot has changed, but it's always been a problem, so.
Any other questions about either facilities or finance? Because I'd like to give the floor to Jay Bolich to talk about the careers and training that we need to be able to provide to our students. So if anybody has any other questions, we'll turn it over to Mr. Bolich.
Hello everybody, how we doing today? Everybody hear me?
Yes.
Was anybody at the school board meeting last night?
Yes.
Okay, all my PowerPoints look like this. Looks a different PowerPoint, I promise. Okay. So I'm the Career and Technical Education Coordinator for the school district. And at the high school, we have 7 different career and technical education certified programs through the state, through DESE, okay? They are offered at every high school, however, we cannot run them at all the schools due to our number of staff. So we have to figure out what the kids are enrolling right now, and we have to get up to a certain number, because if we have less than 10 in the class, I don't like to run a class, okay? So, in the middle school, we have 3 areas. And again, we don't have computer literacy at Berkeley Middle School due to a staffing issue. Okay. So, my job is I go to workforce development. I look at local data, I look at state data, I look at national data, Department of Labor, and a Harvard report I talked about last night. In 2012, in the St. Louis metro area, they have the State of St. Louis Workforce Report. It comes out in August, usually the first Wednesday in August, and it's in cooperation with Workforce Development and the community college. This was the 3rd year they had it, and they survey 16 counties that surround St. Louis City. They go over across the river, they go up to Bowling Green, down to St. Genevieve, out past Warrenton, over Madison County. And they send out 1,200 surveys to industries, all sizes, mom and pop shops to Boeing, everything in between, okay? I always print one out for my office, read it, make notes. This is the 13. If anyone would like to look at this after this is over, feel free. I have 13, 14, and I have the Pathways to Prosperity report up here. I couldn't find the 12. But in 12, this is online too. The 12 in the St. Louis metropolitan area, they found these 4 areas. That's where the growth is going to be in the next 10 years. Okay? These 3 were in line with the Harvard report, Pathways to Prosperity. But here in St. Louis, we're the biomedical belt. And that is, sometimes biomed, the term gets thrown around in Project Lead the Way, that is called biomed. It really should be called pre-med, okay? But what that is, that's chemistry and biology experiments that make money for people, okay? Monsanto, everybody's heard of Monsanto. Monsanto hires people out of college. They work there for a few years. They go start a spin-off company, okay? Bridge Park was created to help these spin-off companies. They start in somebody's garage, but then they get to the point where they have to expand and hire 4 or 5 people. Well, they go to Bridge Park, and Bridge Park is basically 3 floors of science labs with sinks, gas lines, helium, oxygen, whatever, okay? And they have what they call the $1 million hallway. And it's a hallway from here to Mrs. Mandruzzi, 6 foot wide with 2 counters on each side that run. And they've got $1 million worth of equipment sitting on those that the kids use and the people that rent spaces upstairs use. Okay, that's part of the deal. If you rent a space there, you can utilize that equipment. And the people who started these companies, they hire the kids out of class or kids, young adults. A lot of people that are in these classes, these 2-year associates programs, it's all hands-on. Okay, they've got a 16-hour certificate credit. And a lot of people that go to college, 4-year college, and they can't find a job because it's all done in theory, they go there. There was a patent lawyer that was taking the 16-hour credit course, and they were hired within 2 weeks. They're making $15 an hour. Now that's not great, but they won't spend a semester in class. Okay? I take $15 for a semester in class. Okay, and healthcare, I mean, I'm the end of the baby boomers. I was born in 1963. We're going to need some, there's like healthcare is an issue, and they're retiring people out. Information technology, everything runs on information technology, everything. Okay, and manufacturing. A long time ago, everybody said, "Oh, manufacturing all went overseas." Well, the easy stuff, the foundry, the forging, the sheet metal work, stuff that they could ship back over on a tanker. Yeah, that went overseas, but that's now coming back due to quality control and shipping costs. We're still competing with Mexico. It's about a 12-day turnaround as opposed to a 66-day turnaround to get something fixed in Taiwan, or a 2-day turnaround if it's made in America. Okay, if you have an issue, but Mexico is still cheaper than those alleged assets. Anyway, but there's a lot of good manufacturing jobs. Boeing's looking at retiring half their people in the next few years. The people that actually assemble the planes. There's a 5-week training course right now at the former Circuit City building down at Kershaw Road next to Flow Valley. 5 weeks. You can pass the drug test, pass 3 work keys tests, and pass a background check. Take that class. You're going to get hired. I'm not going to guarantee you're going to get hired, but you're going to get hired. Okay? There's all kinds of things like that
Is that
going on.
running right now?
It is. It starts every 3 weeks. They're starting a new class, 7 to 3:30 and 4:30 to 1. If you see me later, I'll get you some, or give me your card, I'll send you some flyers. There's Ameren's looking at the same thing. Complete Gas, MSD. Right now, who lives down in Ferguson by MSB? Pool Valley, they're putting in a new sewer line on the street right now. I mean, our infrastructure is toast. They're blowing up bridges every other weekend on the interstates. I mean, we need construction workers. So, anyway, I could talk about this all day, and I will if you let me. Okay, the 13 report talks about, along with the pathways of prosperity, but it talks about certificates and their online degrees and experience. Okay, the 14 report, I'm not going to go into all of it. I just pulled these are quotes right off the summary. I'm just going to let you read them. That's a pretty big one. And it's all documented by workforce development, those surveys they send out, and this is pretty powerful stuff. In this state of St. Louis, STEM workforce, they got away from just workforce, they do it to straight STEM, because they thought we're not even going to talk about those other things. Okay? So, what are we doing about it? Okay, well here's my merit data. I printed all this stuff off and left copies back there because this is hard to read. MERIT stands for Missouri Economic Research Information Center. This is updated every 3 months. Okay? Now, you can do it, you can look at the whole state, or you can just center in on these regions. But right there, across the state, manufacturing is $52,000. That's an average wage. In St. Louis, it's up to $67,000. That's the average. Okay, I know I can talk about manufacturing, but I'm a former shop teacher, so I'm gearhead, construction head. So anyway, and as I always point out, over here on the future jobs, 3 of these require a 4-year degree. 3, sometimes 4. Now, the warehouse manager, that's probably an MBA, but that's not going to be your first job. You're going to start out with an associate's degree and work your way up. I mean, some of these things, CPA, lawyer, yeah, those are 4-year degrees plus. But carpenters, personal care aides, sales reps, construction laborers, those are high demand jobs. they're on a turnaround. And very technology oriented, all that stuff, you know. So Pathways to Prosperity is the outlook, and we have an action plan for the middle school, elementary, and high school. And I'm not going to go through all these, but right down here, these 4. These are the things we need to add to keep our kids, as far as career and technical ed goes. Biological engineering. That's a Project Lead the Way class. It's dealing with water, alternative fuels, solar, and different conservation principles. All right, we can add that in 16, 17. We can start that process, but we're going to have a matching fund grant called Vocational Enhancement Grant. Okay, last year we put in for 1 computer lab. I've got a chart on that coming up. This year we didn't participate in it. Next year we're not participating in it because we don't have the matching funds. Okay. Biomedical science project lead the way. That's really pre-engineering. We just need a healthcare course here, so we can start directing kids in to Flow Valley or Forest Park. Now they have CNA nursing, certified nurses aid over at North County Tech, but they can only take so many, you know. And we could start a program, but we're going to have to switch it around where our kids would start in the spring of their junior year, and then they go do their clinicals in the fall of their senior year, because in the spring of their senior year, every other high school around here and the tech center have all the hospitals locked up, and they don't play well in the sandbox together when it comes to that. Those ladies are ruthless. No, I've dealt with them before.
So it's Project Lead the Way in all schools, all high schools?
We have engineering in all high schools, and we have Gateway to Technology in all the middle schools. Now, there is a program called Project Lead the Way Launch, which we have talked about trying to implement, but I cannot pay for it because it's elementary. It's relatively cheap. We're going to send somebody to audit the training this summer. As long as in 5th grade, when you start getting into the robotics, that's where the money comes in, you know, because it's engineering principles, and it's, you know, you're making a tower out of spaghetti and some marshmallows and some tape. You've got 5 minutes, and then there's a lesson prior to that. So, you know, it's things like that. I mean, we can do that, but we got to have buy-in. So we're sending Eric Hadley, we talked about it, and I think he's going to go. There's a training here in town, so he doesn't have to have a hotel. He can just go to the training. So it's 2.5 days. So computer science courses. Now, there's Project Lead the Way they've started a computer science wing, and they're writing it as I speak. North County Tech has computer science as well, and their classes are not full. I'm over there quite a bit with tours. They're not full. So I think initially we probably need to make a feeder program to go into there. And there's talk at Education Plus about trying to do that. Because we had the Cisco training before, and what happens, it's really expensive, the training's really hard, and the equipment's really expensive, and we end up with 2 or 3 kids in the end, and you can't run a class of 2. You just can't, you cannot do that. But if we could have the entry-level courses and then try and filter them into North County Tech, just trying not to duplicate services, you know. And technical writing. Technical writing, we're got some PD funds for this, so we're actually starting to write on this next Tuesday. Technical writing is huge. If you can technical write, you can find work. I probably shouldn't elaborate on that big story, but Missouri State says they are placing everybody that graduates with a 4-year degree in technical writing. 100% placement for the last 5 years. Now, I don't have any documented proof because I got them on about that, but they're working on that. But they're adamant all of our graduates get hired right away. So we're talking about funding. This is about money. Money makes the world go round. This is where our money's at this year. Okay? This grant runs out next year. It's a 3-year grant. We're in the 2nd year of it. We get this money by how many students we have, classes running. Okay? Okay, so that's this year. Last year, we had a little bit more. We had some matching grant funds. Okay? That was the second year for this one. Vocational enhancement grant. We're finishing up replacing all of our labs. First year for the integrated high schools, and we are in a Boeing grant. We had send some teachers out. That was to pay for subs and stipends for people. Okay, the year before that, we had a really large enhancement grant. Business and project leadway labs. That was 6 rooms right there. The first year of this, we put computer labs in each of these rooms. And then, of course, it was a little less. 11, 12, 200,000. We just had a vocational enhancement grant, and we were kind of getting our feet wet here. This was the second year we'd done it. And then 11, that was our first attempt at it. And I started in 9-10. Okay? Now, if you put Laura's chart up against that right there, when we have to commit to these, because if we were going to do that, we'd commit now and we turn our paperwork in, it'll kind of go along with her slide about where our deficits were, So, on a district match, we're getting quite a bit of money, but it usually works out to 20, well, this one was obviously low, but these are 30% for what we put up to what we get. 30, 31, 34.
And those were out of the bond funds because it was for equipment. So it was for computers, tables, we bought a whole bunch of stuff with that money.
Yeah, software.
For labs.
Yeah, I mean, it's equipment, but we don't have the matching funds. Now, that first stuff we bought in that first round, that's 5 years old now. So, if I'm going to take some money and replace it, all I have is Sorry, I'm getting better at this. Maybe. Let's go to the last one. Okay. All right, so. Okay.
That one?
There should be one before. There should be. Okay, I guess that one ain't loaded.
That was it.
All right. My last slide's not on there. All right. So, what the last slide has on there is how all my Perkins money is spent. Okay? So, I was going to show you salaries, and so right now we've got $59,000 in salaries come out of Perkins. And what that is, we have classes that get enough students in there, well, but we don't have any more teachers. So we pay a teacher to work on their prep time. Currently, we have 7 teachers working, okay? And once you add in their, take their hourly rate, times it out by the days, put in their benefits, it's about $79,000 or $59,000. So we'll just call it 60. So everything's spoken for. So if I'm going to buy $120,000 worth of computers for the marketing labs that are coming up, I'm going to have to take that out of my 132 or 232. So that's half right off the top. Okay, and the rest is travel, taking us to conferences, taking us to training, buying software. So these are the facts. Can I answer any questions for anybody?
No, but I have a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
I've been a judge at Project Lead the Way the last couple of years, and I'm pretty proud of our Ferguson Florissant schools that participate. I mean, it's amazing what they do. If you ever get a chance to come by and see.
Did you go to Columbia this year?
No, not Columbia, just over here at Flow Valley.
Okay.
Competition, high school competition.
Yeah, we usually send one.
January.
Yeah, we usually send one to 3 schools.
Oh, you said one, okay.
I think this year only McClure kids went.
At
Yeah.
Flow Valley.
Yeah, because we had conflict.
But, they do a really good job, so, thank you.
No problem. Anyone else?
All right. I wanted to give a moment to Rich Miller, who is our Director of Technology. technology is part of this, but, just a couple words to say about computers. I mean, just the basics. We're talking about equipment for our kids to use and what it takes to, keep that up. I think
So, I'm the technology guy. They don't really want me to speak. But they're going to let me anyway. So, my joke about the whole thing is if you talk about STEM or STEAM, it's really T. It's just technology. If it's science, technology, engineering, art, and math, what's the commonality? It's all technology. But so my background is I'm also a product of the district. I've been here just at 5 years. When I arrived, there was a capital spending freeze, and at the time they passed a bond issue. So all of the computer equipment purchases that we've made in 5 years, they all came from this first bond. So I know there's been a lot of discussion about different things we can add. I'm more the Terry O'Neill kind of line, which is we have to continue to replace and have just any kind of technology. So never mind the other things. If we do not have capital money, we're in a position where we can't replace aging computers. And we've really tried to be creative about what we do. We're looking at ways to save money about the types of computers we buy. We're even looking at paying a tiny bit extra for computers to get higher efficiency power supplies, just to add to, is there a savings that we can find in there? But really, whether it's $1 or $2 million, some amount of money that we need to try and maintain just a replacement plan for the computers that exist in the district, and also more mobile technology. Everyone is saying we need more mobile devices. What can we do? We're leveraging using E-rate. We're trying to get federal funds to help us with infrastructure that Ms. Matrusek spoke about earlier. We've been very clever about spending 10% or 15% of district money to rewire half of the district. The enterprise wireless that was here, we used, again, this E-rate money to help our money go further. But still, there's money that we have to put. So if we are paying our 10 or 15% of $1 million or $2 million project, we still have to have that capital money to even get that equipment. So right now, we're in the process. I just reviewed just over 100 pages of our E-rate application to go out there and get new network switches and new wireless access points that would double the wireless in the buildings. But again, we need our matching funds for that. And we also have to buy the computers that connect to it. So again, just besides this new thing or that new thing, just to continue on with what we're doing, everybody here knows technology moves at light speed. And if we're just trying to make sure that we can stay at a pace with that to provide students, faculty, and staff exactly what they need to teach in 2015. So of course that is where the bond or capital money really applies to us when we're talking about STEM or STEAM, which is T. So yes.
I just got a real quick question, and I'm just thinking about testing coming up. How have we tested our infrastructure or technology getting prepared for this testing? How have we tested that?
Yeah, so gosh, unfortunately, put a technology guy up here, and it's a long answer always. So 5 years, we've gone from. If I said the amount of internet that we had here was a number of 45 when I arrived, we're at a number of 400 now. So we've gone, between 8 and 10 times the amount of speed. We do a lot of things that we can do to increase our bandwidth. We also are in the midst, and the board approved a couple things last night that potentially will take us to almost 3 times where we are now, so a factor of like 30. But as far as the testing, it's kind of interesting. Right now it's a McGraw-Hill, I guess, a system that they're using to do the online map testing. Okay. And so, gosh, this has been a give and take. So I would argue that we're fine. And if there's a problem, potentially it's on the other end. But we've done a whole lot of testing on our part. They set aside, there was going to be a particular day where they were going to test this particular test. And they came back and said, okay, we're not going to do that. We're going to spread it out over a longer period of time, which makes me look at it that we're testing our end, but not your end. So I think we're okay. I think we're going to have issues with testing, but I would argue I think the issues are not going to be at our end. The equipment that we have, there's a lot of it that's aging. I would say, it's more 5 to 7 years old as far as our computers. But they meet the standards that are required for, before we also have Smarter Balance, but also the McGraw-Hill. It meets kind of that standard. The amount of bandwidth that we put to the buildings should meet the amount of bandwidth they need. With the current test, instead of all of it going out the internet, we put servers in the schools that have materials, so not everything has to come from outside the district. So I feel like we're doing everything we can do, but that really, I mean, I can't stand here and say it's going to be fine, because I know, a million people are going to hit the button at the same time, and at the other end, there may be a problem,
And if McGraw-Hill is not ready, we'll still be the ones who will suffer the consequences.
The technology guy is going to be hunted down.
Yeah.
But and I'm not trying to give McGraw-Hill grief. I mean, I understand on their end, they're kind of like me. I'm on this end here, and they're on that end there. They're trying to do what they can. But I will say, unless we go back to a chalkboard and chalk, I mean, technology just brings a lot of complication. It brings a level of complexity for the teachers. It brings a level of complexity just for all the devices that are going through there. I will say that since sometime in November, we, like many organizations within Missouri, are experiencing outside, I'll call them attacks, but just people trying to interrupt our internet access. And so we, rather recently, we had an issue where our internet went down. Of course, in technology, we all panicked more than anyone else. It's horrible. But it was really out of our control. It was a situation caused, where traffic was coming to our network that wasn't really our traffic. So those types of things can happen, and at some level it's out of our control. But again, last night we brought a purchase to the board that was a security device that hopefully will help us understand and combat those types of issues. But again, I'm here to tell you, if it's not chalk and chalkboard, you have these potentials for issues. But I feel like, as a department and as a district and with the support of finance, I mean, we really have made great strides in increasing our bandwidth, improving our network. The stuff that we filed for E-rate, again, it's doubling our Wi-Fi and putting new switches in all of our districts if we get that funding for next year. And today, I would say, again, according to what they show us, we should be okay. But there'll be the keyboard's unplugged or whatever. Yes?
So will all of our children have the equipment that they need for the testing, and will it be to them in time for them to have had some kind of experience with it prior to actually testing?
Yeah, so, and again, it's partially a technical question and partially not. I know McGraw-Hill, they're going through all these issues. There's even questions about, the links that they send. There are practice tests that you can access, but you need certain credentials to do that. And literally, every day there's a communication coming from that organization to us for us to test that out. So again, my personal feeling is we'll do everything we can to be ready, but that's not going to, stop these little, there's going to be, again, a keyboard unplugged or some issue with that, or maybe a link that doesn't work, something on their side. But
the hard equipment we will have for our children.
Yeah, so we have enough equipment in the buildings. Again, if you look at how many kids we have, and the window's actually very long. I don't know if there's anyone in this room that knows kind of that, but I think the window kind of starts immediately after spring break and kind of goes to the end of the year. So there should be plenty of time.
May 22nd or something like that.
Yeah, so there should be plenty of time to rotate all the kids in each school through a lab, and some buildings can take advantage of laptops to make sure they do the testing. Kind of interestingly, some districts have gotten rid of their computer labs and moved to other devices, but they're in a little bit of an issue right now because some of the mobile devices can't be used for this particular online test. So in our case, we actually expanded the lab in Vote, I think last year, to make sure that they had a classroom-sized lab. I think theirs was the one school that did not. But in our case, in our district, we've kept our labs intact. Again, for that reason of, you can have a lot of mobile devices, but if you're trying to rotate kids through, to have that lab there. So I think we have enough computers and enough time to rotate all the kids through. And again, the window is long.
I'm not aware, but has there been issues with this before? This is all new to me, so I haven't heard of that.
Yeah, so the McGraw-Hill thing is new this year. And last year, in conjunction with Common Core, there was Smarter Balanced was the assessment, and we actually did for some piloting with Smarter Balanced, and that was running into this year as well. But what we found the last few years with the increased accountability for students as well as faculty, I suppose, now there's so much more assessment. And I think that's kind of a trend that's going to continue on. And then this year, I think they bid out, and so this particular test got bid out and was won by McGraw-Hill. So all of this is new this year. So the McGraw-Hill is new, all the software they have is new. You know, again, we get, as they're testing, like they were testing earlier this semester, then there would be feedback from other school districts saying, hey, we tried it on this and there's an issue. And then they'll put out a bulletin saying, oh my gosh, we see this and we're working on it. So it's that kind of situation right now. It's not, so McGraw-Hill is new. It's not like something we've been doing for several years. But we have been, again, trying to ramp up everything we can in a situation which financially we've had less money for technology, I would say, the last 5 years than time before then. And I would say we've still moved the district forward by being creative and having support and using E-rate. And I think that, yes, sir.
I guess the real world is if somebody really wanted to screw up the Ferguson, Florida school districts with a real honest to goodness hacker attack, they do it. Right.
I mean, if you, without answering that question, you know, before I would say, well, do you think that Sony would have good security? You know, would you think that Target would have good security? I mean, you just pick any organization that you think would have good security, and you see that there certainly are some vulnerabilities, and you know, it's frustrating for me as in my profession to know that there are way more people sitting in rooms trying to mess with me than there are people in rooms trying to help me.
So, my concern was not the hackers that come in, it's just that all of the children would be testing at the same time, and would the system be able to handle all of those kids?
So potentially on our end we can. The issue that we had with our network, you know, since November we've had various little hiccups that actually we worked through. I mean, you know, it's kind of like you don't know all of what goes on behind the scenes, but I think we're fine. There's potential for someone to mess with us, and there's always, again, the technology, some issue that can occur that no one's really going to know. Like for McGraw-Hill, they're not going to know until the window opens and everyone starts to try and test. But I feel like, again, we have enough equipment, we have enough bandwidth. The board made a couple of decisions last night that put us in a situation where we could maybe triple or quadruple the amount of internet we can bring in, but it might take us a month or two to engineer that. But we're constantly looking for ways to make sure that we're providing the best resources we can. But again, everything I'm talking about is almost all capital. I mean, just to speak to that part of it. So the other questions? Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Rich, and thank you to all of you for joining us tonight. We will post, so for all the people that couldn't be with us tonight, we will post this so that it's viewable. So if anybody has any questions, just send them to our website, and there's a button right on the homepage, Proposition I, and all the information that you saw tonight is everything that we have. There's a lot there now, and we'll add this video and the little commercial that you saw. So go there and check it out. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very much for